Great. So we are recording this session, so we'll be able to post a recording of it for anybody who is not able to attend in person. And so I just want to thank everybody here for being in this conversation on our 4% private activity bond process moving forward and our open application period that we have before us now, as well as for all of the work of participating in these conversations over what's really been the last 9 months, which is an incredible duration and stamina for everybody. I think we are in a really good place in terms of having a strategy moving forward. I do also want to acknowledge that this is launching a new process, a new application method for us, some of which is, building components of it as we go. And I think, really running multiple processes at the same time, both trying to understand what private activity bonds we can relieve from the current commitments already in place, while we're also requesting applications for new commitments. And I think a large part of that driving force is really wanting to reopen this application process, not to end up in a place like we know other states like Georgia ended up in, where they ended up in a similar situation and just closed the application while they worked through funding everything that was already in the queue for at least a couple of years, is my understanding. So I think really wanting to highlight that while there is a lot going on in one time in this effort, we are doing so in order to be able to reopen and to be able to make new commitments to projects and really deliver the housing that we know is so needed across the state. And so I think, this session is an information session. We have a relatively brief presentation that Ty Dunson-Strain, the production manager, will be walking us through, and then we'll open for questions after he wraps up. And I think we'll probably hold off on answering questions until we're done walking through that presentation, in case we answer it as we kind of in the natural cadence of this. And so I think all of the questions that we'll be focusing on today will also be writing up questions and answers and publishing those as well. And so I think with that, Ty, I'm going to hand it off to you to take the driver's seat here.
Thanks, Natasha. And so just wanted to acknowledge, for all you folks who are working on projects, we view the relationship as a partnership, and we definitely appreciate all the hard work that folks are doing to keep projects on track. And we acknowledge that this is a different form of intake process, but with the creativity and help, that you all of you smart people on this call, we're excited about launching into this new application phase. So first with that, we're just going to do an overview of the process, and just kind of talk about different project eligibilities that are just clarifying questions about what we're considering, pipeline projects and new projects that are going to be onboarded, and then and also talk about how we envision leveraging the 9% with the goal of trying to maximize the 9% to try to further relieve some of the capacity constraints on the PAB going into next year. And lastly, we're going to talk about this timeline expectations So next, just kind of talk about the submission overview. And admittedly, we know there's been some changes to our website, navigating that seemed might be a little bit foreign to people. So in this presentation we've included links to essentially the application and forms that need to be submitted as part of this process. So next we'll walk through the forms that we're asking folks, everybody, to submit, beginning with the Smartsheet application, and for new projects that are wanting to enter the queue. There it is. So first off, so this is our external website. So we've made some updates. So this is where you can find the Smartsheet, and we'll click on that real quick. See if we can open it up. Yeah. So this is essentially kind of the launching pad, starting off with information we're capturing. So you'll first you'll see the due date up front. It's the 25th. So here you'll see, we're asking you folks to submit, project name, your information, kind of the PAB amount, the all-in number, including short and long, and the amount of 4% tax credits. The next drop down you'll see is kind of where some location information that we're wanting to track, numbers of units, and key right here is how, some further questions around have you got all your resources committed aside from your the PAB and the 4%. We're looking to confirm that, and essentially is zoning in place, and also timelines for any HUD review, whatever, whatever the, each phase of the project, we're looking to try to get some understanding of kind of where you're at, where folks are at in the process with HUD, if you're accessing project-based vouchers, which seems to be it's fairly common around a lot of projects. So we're wanting to kind of flag that. And then also permitting, we've heard feedback from folks in participating jurisdictions that it could take anywhere from six to 8 months. So we're wanting to kind of know exactly from you folks where what timelines that are being getting a report out on that, status on where your lender investor commitments are, what LOIs are secured. That those things are usually critical milestones that we see throughout projects. So we're interested in just kind of really having a check-in with folks around these readiness benchmarks, because we know these are going to be these are going to be critical path items. So we want to make sure that everybody is proceeding accordingly with achieving all 5 of these benchmarks as applicable. Next. And then this is an area, this around readiness and development timelines. This anything that in addition to those 5 benchmarks, this would be an area that we would like like feedback on from you all to just get a better sense of where the project is at this time. And then, anticipated closing date. That's for scheduling purposes. Get on a calendar that would be helpful. And then also what is this project a housing authority owned project, which we will talk about further down the slides, but this is this is an area where folks can flag that. And then we do realize that there's been significant investment by local jurisdictions in the metro area and PHB. So we want to flag that for as part of our new prioritization process, which we'll get into further in this presentation. So that's where you want to enter that number. And then also, we also have projects that we've OHCS has committed resources to in various stages. So we want to flag that there. And with that, if there's we were also as I mentioned earlier, we're allowing certain projects to access a not 9% LIHTC instead of accessing the 4% in PAB. And if folks are interested in that, they would upload a 9% pro forma, and just note that doesn't preclude your project to access the 4% PAB. This is just given an opportunity to have a opportunity to a different tax credit execution if that's of interest. Next. And then when we talk about the HUD benchmarks, we also basically are any other public subsidies that we should be aware of, enter values there. If your organization is culturally specific, we ask that folks provided just brief narrative here, and doesn't have to be an essay. And then a couple other items we're looking for that goes into our prioritization is percentage of units that are going to be available to extremely low income households, PSH, and then lastly, we're asking folks to new applicants to complete a site review checklist and provide an updated pro forma. And this is for new applications, which the links to the site review checklist in the pro forma were in the previous slide. So that covers the forms. Now what should you submit? And I kind of alluded to this, just a minute ago, but if it's a new project, we're asking, that you submit, go through the smart sheet, and also submit 4% performer and a project site review checklist. If you're already on the pipeline, and we've kind of detailed here what we're defining kind of on the current pipeline, we're asking for again to submit through the smart sheet, and if you're interested to be considered for the 9%, you'd be needing to submit a updated 9% performer. And then for housing authority projects that are accessing PAB, if you haven't already done so already, provide us with a current 4% performa for the project, and or if you're wanting to be considered for 9%, updated a 9% performa, uploading a 9%. All right, next. And then, process-wise, we know this is, new to, not everybody has been, this is a new process, but we have folks that are just getting kind of caught up to speed. So we're interested in projects, ready to close between January and June. Although we're asking for a forecast of all the projects, and Natasha, if you want to kind of give the kind of context around why the 6 month, probably a good
certainly. Yeah, and I was trying to add a note, trying to figure out how to edit a presentation midway, and I couldn't do it, but this should say for housing authority project as requiring PAB in 2023. I keep struggling with the years in this. Those for 2023. And so for this first group of projects new to OHCS, what we're looking for are projects that can close in the first 6 months. I think, so we've gotten the question and challenge around, it's challenging to make sure that you're going to hit your readiness benchmarks and incur the costs getting there in advance of the calendar year. So appreciate that. And I think just want to kind of loop around the driving force for that 6 month consideration is kind of influenced from a few different places, one of which is certainly the idea that this is a year where we are trying to get through a place where we already have projects with commitments of resources, want to try to kind of see if any of those can use a different resource, find more ways to onboard new projects in to the closing queue. And we are also looking in the 2023 legislative session to be adding increasing the amount of private activity bonds that is directly allocated to OHCS to fund affordable rental housing. But that, as I understand it, that bonds bill doesn't get passed until January of 2023, which means it will take effect in 2024 calendar year. So in 2023, we will need to be making a direct request from Private Activity Bond Committee to allocate resources to OHCS. And we are also, aware of, in working with them, that we will need to provide a named list of projects that will be using those resources and have a timeliness factor to that request. So in order to really support our efforts to get as much private activity bond allocation as we are able to do to support this pipeline where we know the demand so far exceeds the supply of resources. We really want to make sure that we are looking to support project investments that are able to go. And, you know, as we would gone through this process, many of you have had, you know, in-depth quick interviews with our team. And, you know, what that seemed, you know, when it kind of boiled down along with consultation from Novogradac, that readiness factor was the primary just difference between projects. Either some projects were ready to go, if we could give you PAB, you would be able to sprint down and start construction. I'm saying that's a top priority for right now to clean this through. I don't think after this year that we will be needing to have as tight a time frame on that, except that we do need to pivot to this place of readiness. We do need to pivot to a place of holding to readiness benchmarks and performance. But overall, you know, with utmost appreciation that these are challenging timelines, I think this transition and this year is the time when we really need to dig in on that 6-month forecast. And I see that there's starting to be a lot of questions flowing in. Don't worry, we will loop back on all of them, but I just want to give Ty a little more time to walk through the rest of this, because I think some of these questions will be answered. And so this was for projects that are new to OHCS, meaning that you don't have a reservation in hand of, you know, private activity bond or other resources. And then that you would be, we're looking for to be eligible, you would be looking for projects that can close in this time frame. You have balanced sources and uses, meaning no gaps, and that the readiness factors, those 5 factors that Ty walked through, support that closing timeline. And then I'll just leave you Ty back to this one, where once for those new to OHCS projects, how we will go through making the assignment of resources.
Yeah, so I'll kind of speed through this. So yeah, so priority buckets. So two we're splitting into 2 buckets. 65% made available to projects in the Portland metro counties, and 35% outbalance the state, and then kind of order selection. Housing authority owned projects, projects with significant local resources, and third OHCS and federal funded projects, and then 4th, projects without any public subsidy. And then tiebreakers we're looking for is, first tiebreaker would be culturally specific organization own projects, or partnerships. And then the next kind of after that, the next tiebreaker would be highest percentage of units served, extremely low income. And then after that, we would have, if there's still, there's still a tie, we would then go to projects that have, permanent supportive housing, as part of the project. And that, next slide. Yeah. So, so current pipeline, we're asking for projects to update their closing times to include benchmarks on closing and remaining funding gaps, and then accepting closing times during 2023, and we're wanting pipeline projects to continue to move forward with all program policies that have and meeting benchmarks or there's potential risk to have those reservations be at risk. And next after that. And then the goal, as I mentioned, is to reduce the amount of commitments on the PAB that have already been made, and then eligible projects. Projects with pre-app acceptance or on the wait list or under review. And these terms, under review and wait list are based on an original sheet that got published as part of that when we shut down back in November. If folks still need, we can definitely circulate that if you're, or if you have any questions about if you're, if you not sure where you're still at as far as pre-app wait lists are under review, you feel free to reach out to me directly, and we get that clarified for you. And then also we've opened it up to 2022 OHCS no full awardees, and also housing authority projects that are scheduled to close in 2023. Next slide. And then, yeah, we're expecting that these readiness benchmarks be met in order to maintain a closing date. And then but the department understands that sometimes things are not anticipated. So you folks can request a one month extension to remain on the calendar. And then lastly, if they're unable to meet the timelines, the project will lose the calendar spot, and PAB resources and needs will you'll need to re-enter the queue and essentially go back to the back of the line. And if but a couple of caveats: if OHCS resources are part of these projects and performance timelines are impacted, reservation letters may need to be returned. And then lastly, if PAB is not available to fund an OHCS funded project on a preferred timeline, OHCS would be able to grant timeline waivers. And then I think that is it, if I'm tracking. Oh, one more. And then our goal is to publish an application list within 2 weeks of the closing of the applications, and then go to Housing Stability Council within a month, and we'll need to be contingent upon 9% recommendations and PAB allocations from the committee. So the last piece around allocations from the committee. So all this is an effort to basically go to PAB committee next January. And then projects that already have a pre-application list will not lose their current closing date, though any changes requested, we need to document those. And lastly, the earliest we would expect 9% recommendations to be made would be November, but it could possibly slip into December. And then next, my contact, if nobody has my email, I could, I'll be sure to put it in chat, Angela and Angela's email. We could provide that to you, but with that, we can start to track through the list of questions. Do we want to do questions first or hands raised first? Natasha, what do you think?
I guess I see, is that Steph's hand raised? I think that's the one I see. So yeah, Steph, let's go start with you and then we can move into the chat questions.
Oh yeah, just trying to turn the mute button off. Thank you, Ty, so much. Appreciate the detail. So is there a cap? Is the same cap apply on the 9% as it has in past, or is the cap off the table for the 9s?
Yeah, so cap wise, so the bucket, I mean, I think we have a total of 9 million that we're going to put out. I mean, the objective would be that your same credit requests that you have for the 4% would mirror what you would request in the 9%.
So I guess the question comes around to scale, like, typically a 9% serves, 50 or 60 unit projects, somewhere around there. But, you could, in theory, have somebody, if the cap doesn't apply, somebody asking for, on a 130 unit building to be covered on the 9%. Is that what you guys are planning on doing? Or are you really still sizing it to the smaller projects?
Yeah, we're not at this. Yeah, we're not. We don't anticipate the sizing limitations carried over from the 9% wouldn't carry over in this process. However, there are certain there's going to be a programmatic review just to make sure that the programmatic requirements of the 9% program would still.
So somebody could ask for like a $3 million annual allocation that could go above the $2 million cap.
Yeah, they could in theory for this specific intervention, they could go above the cap.
Okay, and then do the 9% have the same closing timeline before June? I mean, what's restricting the 9%? 9%, those are credits for the whole 2023 year. So
no, we're offering 2024 credit.
But okay, you're offering 2024, but you have to close by June 2023. No, the 9s don't have the same restriction as the 4s.
No, they don't at all.
Okay, so what's okay? So that's good to know. And so can you submit a 4 and then a 9 as well, and then you guys just basically decide which one fits best? Because I know you have a puzzle to put together. So is that the preference? One doesn't absolve you from the other, meaning if I put in for the 4. Same deal, right? Let's take a 50 unit deal. I put in for the 4 and I put in for the 9. You don't get kicked out of one or the other. It's just a function of you guys deciding what's the best fit.
Yeah, so I guess what I would go back to, Steph, is this. I'm just going to reshare this slide. Okay. So because the goal of the 9%, I'll call it an intervention. The 9% intervention is to try to remove some of the commitments of of PAB that we've already made.
Right.
So the projects that are eligible for it are ones that are already in the queue in one way or another. So we've identified that as pre-app acceptance, that wait list period, the commitments that we've just made in our 22 NOFAs,
Mhm.
and then housing authority projects that have been put forward. So those are all ones that will
Ah,
have PAB, right? And so this is
Wow.
the application for nines is asking for consideration for the 9% credit. So yes, if you submit for 9%, we're not rescinding your 4%.
okay,
And if you are selected as, but you know, and I think the evaluation is really, it's around best fit and impact to
Okay.
pipeline, right? So it's gonna be, does it work as a 9%? Does our program evaluation make it work viable? Do
Okay.
they assess that it's viable? And then what's the impact to our PAB subscription rate, right? Like, so how do we get the most PAB into this 9% queue, basically? And so, and I think the place where this is the right focus for this is really just that we are not making, in this process of assigning 9%, we're not making decisions about whether you get funded or not. We're making a decision about which resource funds the project. So it's already got the 4% and we're just making decisions about whether we can move it to a 9% queue instead.
Okay, well, my question is, you know, where it says pre-application acceptance, wait lists are under review. So wait list doesn't necessarily mean that you've been allocated though, right?
Well, and that's where so that list, it's a short list. I think you do have a project on it.
Yeah.
I think it's a short list. It's the ones that were like, we had your hand, we had your pro forma in hand as we
Yeah.
froze.
Right,
And so because we were frozen, we didn't have a mechanism to give you a
Right.
reservation, but we did indicate that we were honoring those applications.
okay,
And so because
right,
we
okay,
hadn't yet frozen when you submitted it, right? So I think, so that is, so you may not be on the calendar. We're in our pipeline assessment, you have been on the calendar.
Okay.
It's just without a date assigned.
and so then, based on a wait list deal, let's say, do you recommend submitting the 4 and submitting the 9? Because, you know, you really don't have, or just go straight to 9 and,
I mean, I think if you submitted your pre-app, we have your pro forma in hand. I
Okay.
think you can use the questions on the form to give us updates on what
Okay.
your PAB need is. You haven't been working with a production analyst, but we do have your pro forma in hand. And so you don't, at least, I think, don't need to do an updated 4% unless you just want to relay your current one. But and you don't need to, but do, if you are interested in 9%, supply a 9% pro forma.
okay, thank you. I think that's good. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop that share. And then are there other hands raised? I think that's the only hand I see raised. There's a lot of questions around the 9%, of course, and we have a team working on questions here. I have a starting point, I think. So in the chat, some questions. So Shelley had asked, for that 9% application, what is it that we're wanting? Basically, are we wanting the full application or really the pro forma? At this point, we're wanting the pro forma components. So the sources, uses, budgets, all of those components. So I'll just jump around a little bit. Siobhan, PHB. So I think the question is if we're closing after June of 2023. And so, yes, we are, for projects new to OHCS, we are only looking at applications for projects that are closing between January and June of 2023. Assuming that there's private activity bonds available still, which I think would be likely by either, project kind of fallout and adjustments, that we would be opening the application period for the second half of the year in April of next year.
But that's for the new ones only, right?
That's for the new ones only, true. So for our current pipeline term, for the projects currently in the pipeline, so pre-application acceptance, wait list, and also NOFA awards, you either will stick with the existing timeline that you have put in there and just reiterate in the form that that's where you're going to close, or you can move that closing timeline. The biggest shift here for projects that are in that situation with this, with, you know, kind of transitioning, that this is really transitioning the current pipeline to the new program structure. So as folks are likely familiar with, there are, you know, in a non-competitive environment, when we had resources to fund everything, we've really been able to allow projects to move across that timeline without a lot of rigor to it. We're shifting that, and so this is the kind of recasting effort for our current pipeline to say, okay, now when are you going to close? Let's make sure we're going to now hold you to your readiness benchmarks, and then moving forward, you'll be also subject to the performance terms. So once we get this updated pipeline, we're not going to need to have a distinction between old versus new projects. You're all going to be assigned, you know, in the same process of both prioritization or of readiness and performance. Really, is prioritization got you there. But yeah, so for new to OHCS projects, though, where it's just this first 6 months. Hope that helps. Shelley, I see your hand.
Yes, just to kind of follow up a little bit, I have the 9% application pulled up. And so so we have our pre-application acceptance letter. We have a bond sale date scheduled next year already. So we are going to entertain looking at the 9%. But there's, you know, in the instructions tab, there's a whole list of documents that are required. There's a lot of narratives. So do we have to have all of that by September 25th? Or can we just fill out like the project details and the development schedule and the sources in the budget stuff and sign the forms and get that in, and then follow up if we're successful with, because we're already have several of these things submitted with our tier 1 and tier 2 bond app. So,
yeah.
Or do we have to do exactly everything that says on that application by this 25th of September?
So Ty or Angela, can you confirm? My understanding is it's really just not all of the supplemental documents. It's the primary components of the pro forma.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Program can confirm that. Yes.
Thank you, Angela.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's see, next question. So are we wanting new projects to submit an additional 9% pro forma too? So I think we've covered this. So no, it's only the existing pipeline projects that would be eligible for requesting the 9% investment at this point in time. There's a question from Steve around, are we able to put other resources, OHTC or PSH resources into the pro formas, asking specifically about 9%. So so if there's other competitive OHCS resources that you haven't been awarded through a process, that you're not able to add them into your pro forma for the 9%. I think the OHTC, there is an open OHTC pool. So we are comfortable with you including OHTC on your 4% pro forma, on a 9% pro forma. We will loop back with, you know, once we're making final recommendations, we'll loop back with Martin on the OHTC resources to make sure that everything is aligned and reserve together. But so you would be able to include 4%. And I think as Ty indicated, you know, the 9%, what our anticipation is that you are retaining any gap funding that you have in your 4% deal and moving it over into your 9% deal. So we're trying to get the most out of these 9% credits. And so you might be able to use, you know, by using more of your gap funding and lesser at the kind of the least amount of 9% credits as you would need to make the deal work. Let's see, and Shelley had the question on that. So again, it's just really the core components of the pro forma, not the attachments for the 9% pro forma and the initial 4% application. And then some questions around the selection and timing requirements for the 9%. And so the strategy here is, again, these are projects that already have resource commitments of private activity bonds and 4%. So we are just evaluating whether we would prefer you to execute that as a 9%. And so we aren't applying the same kind of structure around, you know, which projects have the most extremely low income units. What we're really going to do is evaluate for program fit. So do an assessment whether it works, it feels viable as a 9%, and then look to find the greatest combination of projects that lets us remove the most amount of private activity bonds from our production queue to allow more projects to come in. So it's really a maximizing resources assessment. We'll be sure to kind of publish all of the data that is used. I think, you know, what was the private activity bond use and what would the impact be in there? What's the credit use? How do those ratios compare? And then how do you put together, again, we have around 9 million in annual 9% credits to use. And so what is the combination of projects that gets us to the place where we are creating as much space as possible into that private activity bond queue? Let's see. So can you confirm when the contingent PAB award would be made? You know, from our general timeline here, our hope is that within a month of receiving the applications, we will be having our recommendations around kind of putting projects to calendars, and would be having a feedback loop with you around that. So I think as fast as possible, putting a project on a calendar doesn't require us to bring it to Housing Stability Council for approval. So we're able, I think, should be able to move that on the faster side. So as soon as possible, we'll be doing that. Again, you know, I think it'll have to be contingent because we need to be requesting private activity bond resources from committee. And if it's dependent on us funding projects through 9% to take them out of the queue, would need to have it contingent as well upon council approval of those recommendations. And I think, and at this point, we're striving to get November, if not December, Housing Stability Council for those 9% approvals. So it's, the applications are due September 25th. So by the end of October, our aim will be to have those recommendations communicated, and are committed to sharing as much data as we can be putting out about the projects and those kind of application of our decision-making criteria. Let's see. Can you discuss the plan for projects that are slated to close in late 2023 to 2024? If we have resources available, we would do another open application period for projects closing in the second half of 2023 in April of next year. And then I want to say in the 2023 summer, we would be soliciting applications for 2024. Okay, let's see, Steve, in the last LIFNOFA, the cost escalation assumption was allowed to help us account for expected inflation over the next 6 months. Is this allowed in the solicitation too? I believe the answer is yes. I believe the line around escalation is still included in the pro forma. Is Angela or Ty, do you have other thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think in the new, in the new pro forma, there's a line for escalation. Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, given that, you know, we're still kind of in uncertain times around interest rates, and, you know, and I mean, I'd be okay with that, but we can document that for when we publish out the responses.
Great. Let's see, we talked to Steph about her questions. So there's the biggest question, how much PAB is available in this funding round? And that is, I think it's an iterative conversation, because it will depend on what resources we're able to reassign to 9% credits. I think we're hopeful that we can get at least 100 million out of our funded queue. We have already committed to projects somewhere around, looked like around 200 million. Total PAB in the state is 467 million, I think. 40 million of it goes directly to Business Oregon. OHCS currently gets 250 million directly. We're hoping to increase that in the bond bill, but all of the other resources would need to be requested. So it's part of why we're trying to operate all of these efforts in tandem with each other, so we can both create space and assign projects to it at the same time. But to be clear, there is definitely more demand than the resources will allow to fund. So we will need to be applying our competitive criteria to prioritize investments. So I do see there's a couple hands, but I want to just go next level on these questions. And so our housing authority is required to submit 9% applications on their 4%, or is it voluntary? And based on interest. So yeah, it's if you are a pipeline project, if you are a housing authority project that is using PAB in 2023, you are not required to indicate that you want to be a 9% project. It is voluntary. If you don't think you're a good program fit, if you're not interested in changing resources, you can continue to be a 4% project. This is just, yeah, our effort to solicit interest in it. And I think it's appropriate if you screen yourself out if it doesn't seem like it would be a good fit. So how will we get, so the form, if you go, let's see, in the chat, I think I put, so on our OHCS website, so the question is where to get the form. If you go to this web page, and I will do a new share here. So from our OHCS website, which is the LIHTC 4% application. If you go into application materials, that form is right here. And so, and then down here is the 4% pro forma and the project site checklist. So those are required for new applications. And then here's a link to the 9% pro forma for those that want to be considered a pipeline. Am I sharing this not yet or not? No, you know. Okay, so now, so from our 4% application page, under application materials, you'll see this is the link here for the smart sheet form. I'll copy it into the chat as well. But that's where you can also find in there the updated 4% pro forma. We are wanting to bring everybody onto our updated pro forma, so ask for you to transfer it if possible. Okay, and let's see, Lane, I see your hand raised.
Yes. I understand your goal of maximizing the amount of private activity bonds that you get out of the 4% pipeline. But it seems to me entirely possible that that maximization could best be achieved if a 9% credit greater than the 4% credit were allowed. Even though the amount of the credit might be higher, it would still be worth it to maximize the amount of bonds that you're freeing up. I understood Ty to say that you're expecting that the ask for the 9% credit will be exactly the same as the ask for the 4% credit. But I'm suggesting that may not maximize the bonds that are freed up.
Ty, do you want to, I mean, I guess my first thought is, I think really most importantly, we want you to keep the gap subsidy that you had in your 4% application and not try to make sure you can use all, you know, all the basis, but more try to get the project viable with the least amount of credits as needed. But Ty, does that, I'll let you update that.
Yeah, Len, I appreciate the commentary, and you know, I mean, we're based on the data that you know, we're kind of seeing. I mean, there's just some added cost that with bonds, you know, bond transactions, that by keeping, you know, what we've seen is we're kind of modeling like, okay, well, if you're keeping the credit ask the same, potential, you know, this is all internal modeling, that those other costs that are associated with a bond deal essentially are not getting added in, and then okay, you know, you can still maintain that same credit request and get to a viable project, and that's, you know, that's just kind of our working assumptions, but you know, feel free to ask additional questions. I mean, it's not, you know, not for the group, like, I mean, it's not the last time, you know, we can feel free to, you know, I could dig into it a little bit further, project specific.
That answers my question, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back to the questions list. There's a question around MEP. multi-family, what's that stand for? Multifamily energy program?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have those listed as not eligible, and the reason for that is that there is a huge wait list on those resources. And so there's no assurance that you will actually get the resources. So at this point, we are, as I believe, funneling or having you not request that as your primary resource, but that you would have some other resource to, as essentially plan A, and that plan B is to use MEP if you are actually allocated those resources, would swap out those resources. And you know, functionally, I think it just becomes a situation where if that's on your pro forma and creates that gap and influences your ability to close, that has been problematic. And so it as a assumed resource is no longer an assumed resource. It didn't used to be as oversubscribed as it is currently. And I don't know, I think there's this one might end up being a follow-up, and this flag for Ty and Angela, question on the pro forma. There are expenses that he's seeing included in the eligible basis that they've previously held as ineligible. And so just wanna be able to validate that. And I don't know if that's an answer, you know, in hand, Ty or Angela, or if that's
I don't have an answer for that right now, but I can take a look and see what was possibly changed or altered in the tweaks to get it out the door.
yeah, and Brandon, if you want to reach out to Angela on that directly, that would be helpful if there are specific things to be looking for.
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you very much. Let's see, question from Jeff around, is there going to be a 2023 lift round, or is that funding already allocated? How should we treat funds that have been earmarked by Metro but do not have an official commitment letter? So I think maybe Ty, I'll talk to Lyft if you'll end up talking to the Metro timeline process commitment timelines. Maybe. But so in terms of Lyft in 2023, we have committed, I believe, all but 5 million in Lyft resources to be allocated through Metro's funding jurisdictions directly to projects. And so in 2023, there will be a Lyft round, but the only resources that will be eligible for Metro will be non 4%, non-Metro bond funded projects, as I recall. So it wouldn't, those resources have already been deployed to be leveraged with 4% essentially through Metro, so won't be offered through an OHCS competitive round. And in terms of the treatment of funds earmarked by Metro, Ty, I guess I'll let you lead with your thoughts. And
Yeah, I guess I mean, preferably, I mean, if you know, more, you know, if you're indicating that, you know, all sources are committed, and file and yeah, documentation wise, if you have a letter from a participating jurisdiction, I mean, that, you know, that's the most optimal. But if there's something that's pending, and, you know, and an email that we can get from, you know, in that, there is a place around that in the narrative piece, that if there's something that you know, is like forthcoming in the next, you know, X weeks, and provide a, you know, that's something we could just tie back, you know, from a process standpoint, either a contact or, you know, some additional verification. I think that would probably be the best path. But you know, if those two don't work, you know, follow up with us and let us know what you're thinking before, you know, before the application closes. That would be helpful.
Great. And I think I was just gonna add one, you know, if and when we have questions as we're evaluating applications as they come in, we will be reaching out to make sure that we have the right information. So I think just as assurance, I think that we'll be in touch if we are not sure about the status of something that you provided. But try to add as much detail as possible. Okay, so as our pre-app acceptance projects, our current pipeline projects that want to do 9%, do you need to submit a site visit checklist? I think no, because we should have one on file already for your project. If pre-app accepted projects are submitting the 9% pro forma and there are questions, should these be admitted? Okay, yeah, so if you have a pipeline project, a pipeline 4% project, answer those questions for your 4% transaction around your readiness benchmarks, because that's what we are wanting to update everything with the same information at the same time. And then if you are wanting to do a 9% transaction, we understand that that will likely change the timelines in front of you, but just provide the pro forma. So the question should be all answered about the 4% delivery of your project. And then that related to 9%, you're just going to indicate in a yes, no question, are you interested in being considered for 9%, and then provide the 9% pro forma. And I think at this point in time, we will follow up with the need for any signature pages. So I think you don't need to worry about including these at this point in time. We'll follow up for those. And application fees for 4s and 9s. Our traditional 4% fee is based on a non-competitive structure. So I think we would wait until we're making those funding for this transition round. We would be looking to do that upon basically moving from what is this initial application into your more formal pre-application period. So I think at this point in time, we do not need to layer that piece into it. Does that sound right, Ty?
Yeah, that makes sense. Because yes, well, that's
We'll have to evolve those practices, yeah. But at this point, all of the 4% language is around that non-competitive structure. So it doesn't, I think we need to update that. Are there tie-breaking rules for 9s as there are for 4s? No, because it's really a question for OHCS about how are we going to maximize the impact on private activity bonds. And so we do not anticipate needing to have tiebreakers included there. I think, you know, globally, if there are, it will depend a lot on what projects are interested in being considered. But I think if there are different scenarios that lead to the same amount of maximization, which again, I don't think that would actually happen, but it's likely there would be a dollar discrepancy between the two different scenarios. But I think, you know, looking to geographic distribution would probably be the next driver. And we will, you know, as we get those recommendations put together, we'll certainly provide the rationale for that. Again, I think because what we're deciding is which resource, not whether the project is funded. This is being done a little bit differently. Is OHCS building an escalation contingency of PABs for each project if project costs increase between allocation and closing? Ty, as I recall, we've talked about building in a 10% ability for escalation. Is that?
Yeah, 10%.
Would we consider, I'm gonna hand these Q&As over to you, Ty, and Mitch, but the question here from Sarah around for large projects, would we entertain a 4-9 split?
Yeah, I have to get back to it because there's no guarantee on the 4 side what that potentially would, you mean if it, a traditional 4-9 is, you have you're leveraging basis from the 9%. So yeah, that would be a little bit sticky if there's no guarantee of the 4% being available. But that is different from a phased a phased project, which if you had 2 phases and you did a phase of 9s and versus a phase of 4s, if that kind of makes sense.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, because I wouldn't want to have, the second half of that 4 component still kind of be uncommitted.
It would be one project, not a phased project.
Okay.
But I understand what you're saying about the 4%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got any.
I can follow up separately. Thank you.
Ty, would you want me to read off the questions that we've got left in here for you? Would that make it easier to kind of go through?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So from Brent, is there a contact for potential formula issues with the pro formas?
Yeah, well, you're going to be on there, but so the first contact, yeah, you could just shoot that to myself and Angela, and we'll forward it internally to the right folks.
From Brianna, we were awarded a PAB allocation with our 2021 LIFT RCL. Can you confirm that that is still allocated to 2021 deals and that we don't have to reapply?
Yeah, well, all projects are going to need to submit at least the smart sheet.
So 2021 LIFT deals to need to go in and fill out that smart sheet for the 4%.
Yeah. You have to fill out the smart sheet.
Awesome. Okay, from Shelley, I thought that 9% were allowed to be approved by the OHCS director and didn't have to go to Housing Stability Council. Is this new for this process?
Angela, if you want to,
So technically that's correct. But given all of the exceptions, we're trying to just have a heightened level of transparency by making sure that we circle back with Housing Stability Council.
From Steph, can you provide the list again with the FAQ response for the projects that are eligible for the 9% on the approved / wait list, et cetera?
Yeah, as I think this presentation will get posted online.
Yep.
And it'll have that list.
Yeah, we'll send a follow-up email after this with these questions and responses and also some of these resources that you all are requesting. Here's another one. Ty mentioned a January 2023 decision / announcement date around the timeline. What did this relate to again, please? It was not the third bullet point on the 9% biotech recs to Housing Stability Council.
So process-wise, Shaban, I mean, we still the January date is we still need to go to Treasury to formally get our formal a PAB allocation approved, and they that is in addition to OHCS, Business Oregon and other state agencies have to formally submit applications for PAB requests. In January is the time for that.
Okay, just a couple left.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat, or we'll and we can try to answer them after the fact too if we don't have time right now. But so from Steve, if we had cost increases after getting PAB awarded, can we ask for slightly more 9% credits to fill that gap now that the MCOF is closed?
I would say you probably should stay to the subsidy amount that you listed in the. I mean, we're all modeling this based on the credit amount that is listed based in for the 4%, and keeping that subsidy the same.
Okay, last question we've got from you all, from Brianna. Can you confirm I heard you correctly? 2022 LIFT awardees can apply in this round of PAB funding, even if their closing date is after June 2023.
So LIFT awardees
from this year.
And this is for 9%. Yeah, I mean, it is on the slide deck that folks would be eligible for that.
Then we did get one more. If a project is not going to close prior to June 2023, they should not apply this round, or OHCS wants projects to apply even if closing beyond that date to get a forecast. So do we only want folks applying if they can close prior to June 23 right now, or do we want everyone to apply regardless so that we can get a better read on our timeline?
If you're a new project and you're not on the pipeline, this is for projects that, yeah, if you're a new project and you're thinking about coming in after June 2020, we would want you to come back and apply for if we've got PAB available.
Awesome. Okay, so I think that's all the questions that y'all sent into the chat. I see that Desi, you got your hand up. If you have something else you want to chip in before we run out of time here, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you. The question was about who should apply for those 9% in addition to the 4%, because of the timing of when things close down. There are a few projects that are earmarked for Metro money or PHB money that we're told not to apply, not to put in their pre-application for 4%. And so they're kind of in this weird in-between state of not having a reservation, but being ready to close prior to June 2023. So they are in good shape to close. They don't have that formal reservation, but I am thinking that you still want them to indicate whether they're interested in the 9% and actually apply for 4% as well. I know because previously it sounded like you were saying that only indicate 9% interest if you already have a reservation letter, but these couple projects are just in a kind of unique situation because they are in good shape to close, but they just haven't submitted that pre-app yet.
Yeah, and I guess pulling back up, if we could go back to slide 13. So I'll just, for expediency's sake, I'll just put this back in the chat. Kind of the eligibility list, and if let me send this to everybody. Yeah, so depending on, I'm not here's kind of the list. They might, you know, those folks that you mentioned might actually be eligible.
Okay, so it's not, thank you. That just answers my question. I think that OHCS is aware of these projects and they're far along in the process so it's just a matter of, I don't know, there's the timing of when the 4% closed down. I know they're going to come back with those questions, so thanks for clarifying.
It looks like I might have missed one, Ty, from Destin. For projects with committed OHCS resources, is there a timeline for update submittal? Is it the same as new projects at September 25th?
You know, the update submittal is probably going to be we'll flesh out a date for you, Dustin, because it's also going to tie back to your spot on the calendar. So I'm thinking it's going to be similar to kind of how, you know, the up with the tier, you know, the tier 1 and tier 2 docs. But I'll flag that for you.
And one more in here from Michael Fu. What date in June 2023 is the cutoff? Is it June 1st or June 30th?
Yeah,
I think it was June. I think June 30th was what we were thinking, but we can get back to you.
Yeah, we could get back to you if it's June 30th or not. I'll have to check the I think we put that in the Housing Council agenda.
And then, sorry, one more coming in. September 25th is a Sunday, so it is due on Sunday.
Yeah, that's kind of the last day, like we're, yeah.
It's a rolling deadline.
It's a rolling, like we're not, you know,
Whenever
we're,
before then, if you can.
if you can, I mean, we're not gonna, we're gonna start looking at, you know, real, you know, it's a rolling deadline but, you know, Monday, we will probably, so, you know, some folks work on, you know, you folks work on the weekends, some of us do not. So I will leave it at that.
Great. So I think there's one more question from Michael. Can you list the tabs in the pro forma that are required to be filled out? We can put that in our follow-up for you, Michael, and get that list out of what needs to get filled out. I think we want a pretty, some of it is dependent on if the project is a new project or one that has committed resources already, I think, but we'll confirm what folks need to submit and don't need to submit. And then someone asked for your contact information, Ty, so there you go. Way ahead of me. Great, well, that's 2:30, so I think we'll cut it off here. We're definitely open to any questions or follow-up or feedback as it comes through, so please do reach out to us. We're here to help with this process, and appreciate you all taking the time. And thanks to Ty for being the man on the hot seat this afternoon.
All right, thanks everybody. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.